The vast chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with the low murmur of 1,000 different species, each representative seated in their designated pod. The circular room was a marvel of alien architecture, its dome adorned with holographic representations of the countless star systems under the Council's jurisdiction. At the center, a holographic display of the Milky Way galaxy slowly rotated, occasionally zooming in on areas of interest as various matters were discussed. Ambassador Zixnera, a tall, willowy creature with iridescent skin, stood at the podium. Her large, compound eyes scanned the room as she prepared to address the assembly. As the senior representative of the Galactic Council, it was her duty to oversee the induction of new species into their interstellar community. Esteemed colleagues, she began, her melodious voice amplified throughout the chamber. Today marks a historic occasion. After centuries of observation and debate, we welcome a new species into our ranks. I present to you the humans of Earth. A holographic image of Earth appeared, replacing the galactic map. Murmurs rippled through the chamber, a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Earth, Zixnera continued, a small blue planet in the Orion arm of our galaxy. Its dominant species, humans, have recently achieved faster-than-light travel, meeting our primary criterion for inclusion in the galactic community. The image zoomed in, showing cities, oceans, and the diversity of life on Earth. Many council members leaned forward, intrigued by the unfamiliar world. However, Zixnera's tone grew cautious. It is important to note that by our standards, humans are still considered a primitive species. Their technology, while impressive for their age, is centuries behind most of our member races. Their societal structures are fraught with conflict, and their understanding of the greater universe is limited at best. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Crawlthor, a bulky, reptilian being from a warrior race, spoke up. Why bother including them at all? They're barely out of their stellar cradle. What could they possibly contribute to our grand alliance? Zixnera raised a hand for silence. As per our charter, any species achieving FTL travel must be acknowledged and included. It is our duty to guide younger races, to help them grow and eventually contribute to our shared future. We must not judge them too harshly for their current limitations. As the debate continued, a small figure at the back of the chamber shifted uncomfortably. Dr. Emily Chen, Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Council, listened to the dismissive comments about her species with a mixture of frustration and determination. She knew humanity had a long way to go, but she also knew her people's potential. If only she could make them see it. The discussion moved on to more pressing matters. Zixnera's expression grew grave as she brought up the next topic. Now, we must address the growing threat that faces not just our newest members, but our entire galactic community. The holographic display shifted again, this time showing a dark, ominous cloud spreading across multiple star systems. The Void Plague, Zixnera announced, her voice heavy with concern. It has already consumed 3 star systems in the past solar cycle, and our best scientists are still struggling to understand its nature. Images flashed across the display. Once thriving worlds reduced to lifeless husks, strange energy readings that defied known physics, and fleets of ships fleeing from the encroaching darkness. Ambassador Crawlthor growled, "We should gather our fleets and attack it head-on. Destroy this plague before it spreads further." "We've tried that," countered Ambassador Lyrith, a being of pure energy contained within a translucent shell. 3 battle groups have already been lost. The Void Plague seems to absorb energy weapons and turn our own ships against us. Conventional warfare is useless. Panic began to spread through the chamber. Species that had been at peace for millennia now faced an existential threat they couldn't understand, let alone combat. The Great Galactic Council, for all its advanced technology and combined wisdom, found itself at a loss. In the midst of the growing chaos, Dr. Chen stood up. Her heart raced as she realized what she was about to do, but she knew she had to try. "Esteemed Council," she called out, her voice barely audible over the din. Zixnera, noticing the humans' attempt to speak, used her authority to quiet the chamber. The representative from Earth wishes to address the council, she announced, curiosity evident in her tone. All eyes turned to Emily. Some looked annoyed at the interruption, others amused that this primitive would dare to speak on such a critical issue. But Emily stood her ground. "Thank you, Senior Representative," she began, her voice gaining strength. "While we may be new to your galactic community, humanity has faced its share of existential threats. We've developed unique ways of problem-solving that might offer a fresh perspective on this crisis." Kralthor scoffed. "What could your primitive methods possibly offer against a threat that our most advanced technologies can't handle?" Emily didn't flinch. "Sometimes, Ambassador, the most complex problems require the simplest solutions. We humans have a saying, think outside the box. It means approaching a problem from an entirely new angle, free from preconceived notions or traditional methods." She gestured to the holographic display of the Void Plague. "You've tried fighting this threat with energy weapons and massive fleets. But what if the solution isn't about overpowering it, but outsmarting it? What if we could find a way to redirect it, contain it, or even communicate with it?" The chamber erupted in a mixture of laughter and outrage. "Communicate with it," one ambassador shouted. "It's a plague, not a sentient being." "And how do we know that?" Emily countered. "Have we tried to understand its nature, its origin? What if it's not a weapon or a natural phenomenon, but something entirely beyond our current understanding?" Zixnera raised her hand for silence once more. "While the humans' ideas are unconventional, we are facing an unprecedented threat. Perhaps we should not dismiss any possibilities, no matter how unlikely they may seem." As the council reluctantly agreed to at least consider Earth's input, Emily felt a glimmer of hope. She knew that getting them to listen was only the first step. Humanity would have to prove its worth in the face of this galactic threat. The remainder of the session was spent discussing potential strategies and gathering all available data on the Void Plague. As it concluded, Zixnera approached Emily. "Your species continues to surprise us, Dr. Chen," the senior representative said. "While many on the council doubt your capabilities, I sense a unique potential in humanity. Your thinking outside the box may be exactly what we need in these dire times." Emily nodded, grateful for the support. "We won't let you down, Senior Representative. Humanity has always thrived in the face of adversity. This challenge is greater than any we faced before, but I believe it will bring out the best in us." As Emily left the council chamber, she couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She had spoken up for humanity, and now they had to deliver. The fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy, might depend on humanity's unconventional approach to problem-solving. Little did the Galactic Council know, back on Earth, a team of brilliant scientists, strategists, and thinkers were already hard at work, devising plans that would soon turn the tide of this cosmic conflict. The stage was set for humanity to prove its worth among the stars. Earth's unconventional proposal. The following week, the Galactic Council reconvened. The chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from across the galaxy gathered to hear Earth's proposal. Dr. Emily Chen stood at the center, her heart racing, but her resolve unwavering. Behind her, a team of Earth's brightest minds waited, each an expert in their field. Ambassador Zixnera called the session to order. "Esteemed colleagues, we gather today to hear the proposal from Earth regarding the Void Plague crisis. Dr. Chen, you have the floor." Emily stepped forward, activating a holographic display. "Thank you, Senior Representative. We've analyzed the data provided by the Council, and we believe we have a multifaceted approach that could turn the tide against the Void Plague." The display showed a series of simulations as Emily began to explain. "First, we propose a radical shift in our understanding of the Void Plague. Instead of viewing it as a mindless force, we suggest treating it as a complex, possibly sentient entity." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Kralthor's voice boomed out. Absurd. You're anthropomorphizing a cosmic disaster. Emily held her ground. With respect, Ambassador, we're not anthropomorphizing. We're expanding our perspective. Our scientists have detected patterns in the plague's movement that suggest a form of intelligence we don't yet understand. She gestured to one of her team members, a quantum physicist named Dr. Raj Patel. He stepped forward, pointing to a series of wave patterns in the hologram. These energy fluctuations show a regularity that's statistically improbable for a random phenomenon. We believe the void plague might be attempting to communicate. The council chamber erupted in a mixture of scoffs and intrigued murmurs. Emily pressed on. Based on this hypothesis, we propose a three-pronged strategy: communicate, contain, and counteract. She outlined each point. Communicate. Develop a method to interpret the plague's energy patterns and attempt two-way communication. Contain. Instead of trying to destroy the plague, create a network of gravitational wells to redirect and potentially trap it. Counteract. If communication fails, use the plague's own energy signature against it, developing a reverse plague that could neutralize its effects. As Emily explained each point, the reactions from the council members ranged from outright dismissal to cautious interest. Ambassador Lirith, the energy being, floated closer. Your ideas are intriguing, Dr. Chen. But how do you propose to implement them? Our most advanced technologies have failed against the void plague. Emily smiled. That's where human ingenuity comes in. We're not bound by centuries of established scientific doctrine. We're free to think unconventionally. She introduced the rest of her team. Dr. Maria Gonzalez, a linguist specializing in non-human communication. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, an expert in experimental propulsion systems. And Major Sarah Collins, a strategic operations specialist from Earth's United Military. Dr. Gonzalez took the floor. We've developed an algorithm that can analyze and mimic the energy patterns of the void plague. By broadcasting these patterns with subtle variations, we hope to establish a basic form of communication. Ambassador Kralthor growled, and what if you provoke it into attacking more aggressively? Major Collins stepped in. That's why we're proposing a containment strategy in parallel. Dr. Tanaka, if you would. Dr. Tanaka brought up a new holographic model. We've designed a network of gravimetric beacons. When activated in sequence, they could create a series of artificial gravity wells, essentially creating a labyrinth that could slow or even trap the void plague. The council members leaned in, their interest piqued despite their skepticism. Ambassador Zixnera asked, "And your third strategy?" "This reverse plague." Dr. Paddle explained, "By analyzing the quantum structure of the void plague, we believe we can create an opposing force. Think of it as an anti-plague that could neutralize the void's effects, potentially even reversing the damage done to consumed star systems." As the human team finished their presentation, the council chamber fell into an uneasy silence. The proposals were unlike anything they had considered before. They were risky, based on unproven theories, and relied on technologies that, by the council's standards, were primitive at best. Ambassador Kralthor was the first to speak. "This is preposterous. You expect us to pin the fate of the galaxy on the ramblings of a species that has barely left its own star system. These plans are nothing but fantasy and wishful thinking." Several other council members voiced their agreement. The chamber began to fill with dismissive chatter and derisive laughter. But not everyone was laughing. Ambassador Lirith pulsed with an intense glow, indicating deep thought. "Colleagues, while these ideas may seem outlandish, we must remember that our conventional methods have failed us. Perhaps there is merit in this unconventional approach." Another voice chimed in. It was Ambassador Tzork, a methane-breathing entity known for their logical approach. The humans' proposals, while unorthodox, do present a certain logical framework. The risk of attempting these strategies must be weighed against the certainty of failure if we continue our current course. Emily and her team exchanged hopeful glances. They had found some allies, even if tentative ones. Ambassador Zixnera raised her hands for silence. We find ourselves at a crossroads, esteemed colleagues. The proposals from Earth are indeed radical, but our situation is dire. I suggest we put it to a vote. Should we allocate resources to attempt the human strategies? The voting process was tense. Holographic tallies flickered above the center of the chamber as each representative cast their vote. Emily held her breath, watching the numbers fluctuate. In the end, it was close, but the result was clear. The majority had voted against Earth's proposals. Ambassador Zixnera's voice was heavy as she announced the result. The Council has spoken. While we appreciate Earth's input, we cannot endorse these unproven strategies at this critical time. We will continue to focus on our established methods of combating the Void Plague. Emily's heart sank, but she refused to give up. As the council session adjourned, she approached Ambassador Zixnera. Senior Representative, I understand the council's decision, but I implore you, don't dismiss our ideas entirely. Give us a chance to prove their viability on a smaller scale. Zixnera looked at Emily with a mixture of sympathy and resignation. Dr. Chen, while I admire your species' creativity, the council has made its decision. We simply cannot risk our limited resources on such speculative methods. As Emily and her team prepared to leave, they were approached by a small group of ambassadors, including Lirith and Tizork. Lirith's energy form pulsed softly as they spoke. Your ideas intrigue us, humans. While the council may not support you officially, there are those of us who would be interested in, unofficially exploring your proposals. Zork added, indeed. We represent a coalition of worlds on the outer rim of council space. We have fewer resources, but also fewer restrictions. Perhaps we could arrange a small-scale test of your strategies. Emily's eyes lit up. It wasn't the full support of the council, but it was a start. We would be honored to work with you, she said, hope returning to her voice. Together, we might just find a way to save the galaxy. As they left the council chamber, Emily turned to her team. Well, it's not what we hoped for, but it's not a total loss. We've got work to do, and a galaxy to save, whether the council believes in us or not. The human team, along with their new alien allies, set off, determined to prove the worth of Earth's unconventional tactics. Little did the dismissive council know, this small group of believers might just hold the key to defeating the Void Plague and changing the course of galactic history. The threat intensifies. In the weeks following the Galactic Council's rejection of Earth's proposals, the situation across the galaxy grew increasingly dire. The Void Plague, unchecked and seemingly unstoppable, began to accelerate its consumption of star systems at an alarming rate. The Galactic Council's Emergency Command Center was a hive of frantic activity. Holographic displays flickered with real-time updates from across the galaxy, each new report more grim than the last. Ambassador Zixnera stood at the center, her usually composed demeanor showing signs of strain. Status report, she demanded, her voice tight with tension. A harried-looking alien officer, his skin a pale blue and covered in bioluminescent patterns, stepped forward. Senior Representative, the Void Plague has breached our outer defensive lines in the Orion Spur. The Zenthian colony world of Nex Prime has gone dark, and we've lost contact with our fleet in the Cygnus sector. Zixnera's compound eyes widened in dismay. Nex Prime. But that was one of our most fortified outposts. How is this possible? Ambassador Kralthor slammed his fist on the command console. Our weapons are useless. Every ship we send either disappears or returns, changed. This plague adapts faster than we can develop new strategies. The room fell into a tense silence, broken only by the constant beeping of alert signals. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations, with technologies refined over millennia, found themselves helpless in the face of this cosmic horror. Meanwhile, on the outer rim of council space, a very different scene was unfolding. On a small rocky moon orbiting a gas giant, Dr. Emily Chen and her team had set up a makeshift research facility. Here, away from the scrutiny of the Council, they worked tirelessly alongside their alien allies to implement Earth's unconventional strategies. Emily stood before a holographic display, analyzing the latest data on the Void Plague's movements. Dr. Raj Patel worked furiously at a complex array of quantum computers, while Dr. Maria Gonzalez fine-tuned their communication algorithms. Ambassador Lirith, their energy form pulsing with nervous excitement, hovered nearby. Dr. Chen, we just received word. The plague has consumed another star system, less than 10 light-years from here. Our window of opportunity is closing fast. Emily nodded grimly. Then we need to accelerate our plans. Raj, how's the quantum entanglement array coming along? Dr. Patel looked up from his work, dark circles under his eyes betraying long hours of intense focus. We're close, Emily. The array should be able to create a stable network of mini wormholes. If it works, we'll be able to deploy our gravimetric beacons faster than conventional ships could ever manage. Good, Emily replied, because we're going to need every second we can get. She turned to Dr. Gonzalez. Maria, any progress on deciphering the plague's energy patterns? The linguist nodded excitedly. I think we've had a breakthrough. Look at this. She pulled up a series of complex waveforms on the display. These patterns aren't random. There's a structure here, almost like a language. We've managed to isolate several recurring phrases in the energy fluctuations. Emily leaned in, her eyes widening. Are you saying we might actually be able to communicate with it? Potentially, Maria replied cautiously. But we need more data, and we need to get closer to the plague to broadcast our responses effectively. At that moment, Major Sarah Collins burst into the room, her face grim. We've got a problem. Just intercepted a transmission from the Council. They're planning a last-ditch assault on the plague. They're throwing everything they've got at it. Emily's heart sank. But that's suicide. They'll just be feeding the plague more energy and technology to absorb. Ambassador Tzork, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. We must act now, Dr. Chen. Our window of opportunity closes as we speak. Emily took a deep breath, steeling herself for what came next. You're right. It's time to put our theories to the test. She turned to her team. Raj, prep the quantum entanglement array. Maria, load your communication algorithms into the main computer. Sarah, I need you to coordinate with our alien allies and set up a defensive perimeter around our operation. As the team sprang into action, Emily couldn't help but feel the weight of the galaxy on her shoulders. Their unconventional plan was the last hope against the encroaching doom of the Void Plague. Back at the Galactic Council's command center, the mood was one of grim determination tinged with desperation. Ambassador Zixnera addressed the assembled fleet commanders, her voice solemn. Esteemed warriors of the galaxy, you know the gravity of our situation. The Void Plague threatens not just our worlds, but the very fabric of space-time itself. Today, we make our final stand. Every ship, every weapon, every ounce of energy we possess will be brought to bear against this threat. May the stars grant us victory. As the transmission ended, Zixnera turned to Ambassador Krelthor. Is this truly our only remaining option? Krelthor's reptilian features were set in a harsh grimace. We've tried everything else. If we can't destroy it with overwhelming force, then at least we'll go down fighting. As the Council's massive fleet assembled, a lone message came through on a secure channel. It was from Dr. Chen. Please, reconsider this attack. We have an alternative strategy in motion. Give us a chance, Stowe. Krelthor cut off the transmission with a snarl. The humans again. Will they never learn their place? Zixnera, however, felt a flicker of doubt. Perhaps we should hear them out. But it was too late. The fleet was in position, and the order to attack had been given. Thousands of ships, representing the combined might of 100 advanced civilizations, opened fire on the roiling darkness of the Void Plague. For a moment, it seemed as if the overwhelming barrage might have an effect. The edge of the plague rippled and recoiled under the onslaught. But then, to the horror of the watching council, the darkness began to pulse with an eerie light. It was absorbing the energy of the attacks, growing stronger with each blast. Tendrils of void shot out, enveloping entire squadrons of ships. Those vessels that weren't instantly destroyed began to turn on their allies, their crews subsumed by the plague's influence. In the command center, panic set in as the magnitude of their mistake became clear. "Cease fire! Cease fire!" Zixnera screamed, but it was too late. The chain reaction had begun, and the plague was now advancing faster than ever, energized by the massive influx of power from the attack. As systems across the galaxy began to go dark at an alarming rate, Emily and her team raced against time. On their small moon base, the quantum entanglement array hummed to life, creating a network of mini-wormholes across the threatened sectors. "Gravimetric beacons deploying now," Dr. Patil announced, his fingers flying over the controls. Emily watched the holographic display, her heart pounding as the network of gravity wells began to form. "Maria, start broadcasting the communication signals. Full spectrum, just like we planned." Dr. Gonzalez nodded, initiating the complex sequence of energy pulses designed to mimic and respond to the plague's own patterns. For several tense minutes, nothing seemed to happen. The void plague continued its relentless advance, swallowing stars and planets in its wake. But then, almost imperceptibly at first, its movement began to slow. "It's working," Major Collins exclaimed, pointing at the display. "Look, the gravity wells are redirecting its flow." Indeed, the plague's expansion was being channeled, forced into a spiraling pattern by the carefully positioned gravity wells. But the real shock came moments later when the plague's energy patterns began to shift in response to the humans' communications. "We're getting a response," Dr. Gonzalez shouted, her eyes wide with disbelief. It's trying to communicate back." As the team watched in awe, the void plague's movements became less erratic, more purposeful. It was as if, for the first time since its appearance, the entity behind the plague was attempting to make contact. Emily felt a mixture of terror and exhilaration. Their crazy, unconventional plan was actually working. They had managed to do what the combined forces of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations could not. They had made first contact with the void plague. But as the alien entity's response grew stronger, Emily realized that this was just the beginning. Understanding and potentially negotiating with this cosmic force would be the greatest challenge humanity had ever faced. As alerts flooded in from across the galaxy, reporting on the plague's sudden change in behavior, Emily turned to her team and alien allies. "Well, folks," she said, a nervous smile playing on her lips, "looks like we've got its attention. Now comes the hard part, figuring out what it wants and how to coexist with it." The fate of the galaxy now rested on humanity's ability to understand and communicate with a force beyond anything they had ever encountered. The Galactic Council's dismissal of Earth's tactics was about to be proven dramatically and embarrassingly wrong. Unexpected victories. The Galactic Council's emergency command center was in chaos. Frantic reports poured in from across the galaxy, each more confusing than the last. The Void Plague, which had been consuming entire star systems with terrifying speed, had suddenly and inexplicably changed its behavior. Ambassador Zixnera stared at the main view screen, her compound eyes struggling to make sense of the data. "I don't understand," she muttered. "The plague. It stopped expanding." A junior analyst, his tentacles quivering with excitement, spoke up. "Not just stopped, senior representative. Look at the Cygnus sector." The view screen zoomed in on a region of space that had been on the brink of annihilation just hours before. Now, impossibly, the darkness of the void plague was receding. Stars thought lost were reappearing, their light pushing back the encroaching void. Ambassador Krelthor slammed his fist on the console. "How is this possible? Our attack failed. Nothing we've done has had any effect until now." As if in answer to his question, A communication request flashed on the screen. The source, the small forgotten outpost where Dr. Emily Chen and her team had been working. Zixnera hesitated only a moment before accepting the call. Emily's face appeared on the screen, tired but triumphant. "Ambassadors," she said, her voice tight with controlled excitement. "I believe we have some developments to report." Meanwhile, back at the makeshift research facility, Emily and her team were working furiously to maintain and expand their tenuous connection with the Void Plague entity. Dr. Maria Gonzalez hadn't left her station in hours, her eyes fixed on the stream of data flowing across her screens. "The linguistic patterns are becoming clearer," she announced. "It's like the entity is learning our language as we learn its." Dr. Raj Patel nodded, his fingers flying over his quantum computer interface. "The gravimetric network is holding stable. We're not just containing the plague anymore. We're actively reshaping its structure." Emily turned to Ambassador Lirith, whose energy form was pulsing with a mix of anxiety and hope. "What's the status of the affected systems?" Lirith's voice was filled with awe. "It's remarkable. Worlds we thought lost are re-emerging. The plague isn't just retreating. It's restoring what it consumed." As the team worked, Major Sarah Collins burst into the room, her face a mix of excitement and disbelief. "You're not going to believe this," she said, pulling up a holographic display. "We're getting reports from across the galaxy. The plague isn't just stopping, it's helping rebuild." The display showed scenes from various worlds. On one, tendrils of the once destructive void were now delicately reconstructing shattered buildings. On another, a desolate landscape was blooming with life as the plague seemed to restore entire ecosystems. Emily felt a surge of hope, but also caution. "We need to understand why," she said. "Maria, can we establish more direct communication yet?" Dr. Gonzalez nodded slowly. "I think so. But Emily, there's something else you should see." She pulled up a new data stream, a complex series of energy patterns that pulsed and shifted. "These patterns, they're not just language. I think they're emotions." The implications were staggering. The Void Plague wasn't just a mindless force of destruction. It was a sentient entity capable of feeling, and apparently, remorse. As the team grappled with this revelation, their alien allies watched in amazement. Ambassador Tzork turned to Emily, his methane-breathing apparatus hissing softly. "Dr. Chen, in all my centuries, I've never seen anything like this. Your species, you've accomplished in days what the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy couldn't do in years." Emily allowed herself a small smile. "We just approach the problem differently. Sometimes, a fresh perspective is all you need." Back at the Galactic Council Command Center, the mood had shifted from despair to cautious hope, tinged with confusion and, for some, embarrassment. Ambassador Kralthorpe paced back and forth, his reptilian tail lashing in agitation. "I don't understand. How did they do it? Their technology is primitive, their methods unproven." Zixnera held up a hand for silence. "Perhaps, colleagues, it's time we acknowledge that technological advancement and unconventional thinking are not mutually exclusive. The humans have shown us that creativity and adaptability can be just as powerful as our most advanced weapons." As if to underscore her point, another report flashed across the main screen. The Zenthian colony world of Nex Prime, thought lost to the Void Plague, had just re-established contact. Not only was the planet intact, but it was thriving, its ecosystems more vibrant than ever before. The council chamber erupted in a cacophony of excited voices. Amid the chaos, Zixnera made a decision. "Open a channel to Dr. Chen's team," she commanded. "It's time we heard the full story." The next few hours were a flurry of explanations, demonstrations, and, for many council members, a humbling lesson in the power of thinking outside established norms. Emily and her team took turns explaining their approach. The gravitational containment network, the attempts at communication, and the breakthrough realization that the Void Plague was a sentient, albeit alien, entity. Dr. Gonzalez took center stage, explaining their linguistic breakthrough. We realized that the plague's energy patterns weren't random. They were a form of communication. By mimicking and modulating these patterns, we were able to establish a dialogue. Dr. Paddle followed, detailing the quantum entanglement array that allowed them to deploy their strategy across vast distances of space. By creating a network of mini wormholes, we were able to extend our influence far beyond our physical reach, he explained. As the presentation continued, the council members' expressions ranged from awe to disbelief, and in some cases, to shame at their earlier dismissal of the humans' ideas. Ambassador Kralthor, his earlier bravado subdued, asked the question on everyone's mind. But what does the entity want? Why was it consuming our worlds? Emily stepped forward to answer. That's the most fascinating part, she said. As far as we can tell, the entity, let's call it the Void Being, didn't realize it was causing harm. It experiences reality in a way fundamentally different from us. What we saw as destruction was, to it, a form of exploration and assimilation of knowledge. She continued, when we established communication, we were able to make it understand the harm it was causing. The restoration we're seeing now, that's its way of making amends. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They had been on the brink of annihilation, not due to a malevolent force, but because of a cosmic misunderstanding. Zixnera's voice was thoughtful as she spoke. Dr. Chen, you and your team have achieved what we thought impossible. You've not only saved countless lives, but potentially opened the door to a new era of cosmic understanding. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I extend our deepest gratitude and our sincerest apologies for our earlier skepticism. Emily nodded graciously. Thank you, Ambassador. But our work is far from over. We've made first contact, but now comes the challenge of establishing a lasting relationship with the Void Being. There's so much we can learn from each other. As the council session continued, plans were made to establish a permanent human-led research station to continue communications with the Void Being. Proposals for integrating human problem-solving techniques into galactic governance were put forward, and several council members even suggested fast-tracking Earth's full membership into the galactic community. In the midst of the excitement, Emily took a moment to gather her team. Looking at their tired but proud faces, she felt a surge of pride. We did it, she said simply. We showed them what humanity is capable of. Dr. Paddle grinned. Not bad for a bunch of primitives, eh? As laughter rippled through the group, Emily's expression grew serious. But remember, this is just the beginning. We've earned their respect, now we need to keep it. The real work starts now. With the immediate crisis averted, the galaxy stood on the brink of a new era. Humanity, once dismissed as primitive and naive, had proven itself to be a valuable member of the galactic community. The stars, it seemed, were no longer the limit for human potential. Vindication and recognition. One standard galactic year had passed since the fateful day when humanity's unconventional tactics had saved the galaxy from the Void Plague. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled to capacity, its tiered seating accommodating representatives from thousands of worlds. The air buzzed with anticipation as beings of all shapes, sizes, and compositions waited for the historic session to begin. At the center of the hall, Dr. Emily Chen stood on the speaker's platform, flanked by her team and a delegation of human diplomats. She couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought them here. From dismissed outsiders to the saviors of the galaxy. Ambassador Zixnera's voice rang out, calling the session to order. Esteemed colleagues, honored guests, we gather today to address a matter of utmost importance, the formal recognition of Earth's contributions to galactic peace and the proposal for their full membership in the Galactic Council. A ripple of excitement passed through the assembly. Zixnera continued, her compound eyes gleaming with what Emily had learned to recognize as respect. But first, we must acknowledge our own failings. In our arrogance, we dismissed the ideas of those we deemed primitive. We nearly doomed our civilization because we were too proud to consider unconventional solutions. Ambassador Krulthor, once one of humanity's harshest critics, stepped forward. His reptilian features were solemn as he addressed the council. I was among the loudest voices opposing the humans' proposals. I was wrong. Their creativity, their ability to think beyond established norms, saved us all. We owe them a debt that can never be fully repaid. As murmurs of agreement spread through the hall, Emily felt a surge of pride for her team and her species. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't advanced technology, but the ability to approach problems from new angles. Zixnera gestured for Emily to take the podium. As she stepped forward, Emily saw faces filled with curiosity and admiration, a far cry from the skepticism they had faced just a year ago. Esteemed members of the Galactic Council, Emily began, her voice steady despite her nerves. A year ago, we stood on the brink of annihilation. Today, we stand at the dawn of a new era of galactic cooperation and understanding. She paused, looking out over the diverse assembly. The Void Being, once perceived as our greatest threat, has become one of our most valuable allies in understanding the cosmos. Through continued communication and collaboration, we've learned that the universe is far more complex and wondrous than we ever imagined. Holographic displays sprang to life around the hall, showing images of the remarkable developments of the past year. Restored worlds flourished with new life. The Void Being, now visible as a shimmering, ever-shifting form of dark energy, worked alongside scientists from various species to explore the fundamental nature of reality. Our success, Emily continued, wasn't just about the specific tactics we employed. It was about the principle behind them, the willingness to question assumptions, to approach problems from new angles, and to seek understanding before resorting to conflict. She gestured to her team. Dr. Raj Patel, Dr. Maria Gonzalez, and Major Sarah Collins. This victory belongs not just to humanity, but to every being in this galaxy who dared to believe that there might be a better way. It belongs to our allies who took a chance on our wild ideas, and to the council members who were willing to admit their mistakes and embrace change. As Emily spoke, the atmosphere in the hall shifted. The initial excitement gave way to a deeper sense of unity and purpose. Species that had been bitter rivals for millennia found themselves nodding in agreement, united by the shared experience of near extinction and miraculous salvation. Ambassador Lyrith, their energy form glowing brightly, floated forward. Dr. Chen speaks the truth. This past year has shown us that diversity, not just of species, but of thought and approach, is our greatest strength. The humans' tactics worked precisely because they were unlike anything we had tried before. Tzork, the methane-breathing alien who had been one of humanity's earliest supporters, added his voice. We propose not only full membership for Earth in the Galactic Council, but the establishment of a new initiative, the Human Approach, we shall call it, a program to integrate Earth's problem-solving methodologies into all aspects of galactic governance and research. The proposal was met with enthusiastic approval. Species across the galaxy had seen the benefits of human creativity firsthand in the restoration of their worlds, and the new discoveries made possible by cooperation with the Void Being. As the Council prepared to vote on Earth's membership and the new initiative, Emily felt a tug on her sleeve. She turned to see Dr. Gonzalez, her eyes wide with excitement. "Emily," she whispered, "we're receiving a new communication from the Void Being. I think it wants to address the Council." A hush fell over the hall as Emily relayed the request to Zixnera. After a moment of stunned silence, the senior representative nodded her approval. The holographic displays flickered, and a shimmering ethereal form appeared, the visual representation of the Void Being's energy patterns. When it spoke, it was through a harmonic resonance that vibrated through the very air of the council chamber. "Galactic beings," it began, its voice a symphony of cosmic frequencies translated by the communication algorithms developed by Emily's team. "We offer gratitude. Long have we traveled the cosmos, seeking understanding. In our exploration, we caused harm unknowingly. The humans showed us a new way, a way of communication, of mutual growth. The being's form shifted, displaying echoes of the worlds it had restored. We have learned much from you, as you have from us. The humans call it symbiosis, a mutual benefit through cooperation. We propose to extend this symbiosis to all willing species. Together, we can explore the greatest mysteries of existence. As the Void Being's address concluded, the council erupted in a frenzy of excited discussion. The implications were staggering. Access to knowledge and capabilities beyond anything they had imagined, all made possible by humanity's unconventional approach. The vote, when it came, was unanimous. Earth was granted full membership in the Galactic Council, with Dr. Chen appointed as its first representative. The Human Approach Initiative was approved with a mandate to integrate Earth's problem-solving methodologies across all aspects of galactic society. As the session concluded, Emily found herself surrounded by her team and a growing crowd of well-wishers from across the galaxy. Ambassador Zixnera approached, extending a gesture of respect. "Representative Chen," she said, the new title still sounding strange to Emily's ears, "on behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer our deepest apologies for our initial skepticism and our profound gratitude for all you've done." Emily smiled, shaking her head slightly. "No apologies necessary, Ambassador. We're all learning and growing together. That's what this is all about, isn't it?" As the celebration continued around them, Emily gazed out at the stars visible through the council hall's transparent dome. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, not through military might or technological superiority, but through creativity, adaptability, and the willingness to see things from a new perspective. The galaxy had scoffed at Earth's tactics until realizing they were human-made. Now those same tactics were ushering in a new era of exploration, cooperation, and understanding. As Earth's first Galactic Council representative, Emily Chen knew that the greatest adventures and challenges still lay ahead. But for the first time in galactic history, the future seemed brighter than ever before.